After getting a degree in speech therapy from Long Island University, Paul Bennett started his professional career at the Roundabout Theater in New York. He produced and directed theaters and dance companies in Florida, LA, New York, and then moved to Los Angeles to use his many talents in television and film. He became the director of promotions, corporate relations for Comic Relief. During his 6.5 years in that position, he created successful corporate promotions and produced special events that raised millions of dollars for healthcare for the homeless. He worked with, discovered, and developed up-and-coming comics to be part of Comic Relief. In 1995, he left to form his own talent management production company, PB Management. His clients have appeared in numerous television shows and films. He has worked and has had a first look deal with HBO original programming and consulting agreements with Starz. He is involved in developing many projects under consideration by network studios and production companies. And Paul has been listed in Who's Who in the West. He has received commendations from the governor of Florida, the mayor of Los Angeles, and numerous nonprofit organizations for outstanding work in helping charitable causes. Paul was elected president of the Talent Managers Association in July of 1999 and served in that capacity till 2001. He was the president emeritus of the Talent Managers Association from 2003 to 2007 and is a two-time recipient of the prestigious Seymour Heller Manager of the Year Award. But maybe most importantly, Paul has also been involved in animal rescue in Los Angeles. A longtime volunteer and supporter of Best Friends Animal Society, he has also been involved with North Shore Animal League and numerous rescue groups and shelters in LA. And he's on the advisory board of Hollywood Paws. You can read more about Paul's management company at pbmanagement.com. Paul, thank you so much for being here today.
It's my pleasure, and it's good to see you.
Thank you. It's been a while. Hey, the very first thing I wanted to ask before I even get into it, in the bio, you had mentioned something about the first look with projects at HBO. Hey, would you just explain to people exactly what that means?
Certainly. When you have an agreement with somebody, all that really means is if you have a project that you want to get produced, that you want to work on, get on network, or whichever, you have to take it to them first. It's kind of like they have the first right of refusal. So if they say yes, you don't go anywhere else. If they say no, then you can go anywhere you want. And there are even, to some degrees, I think some people have second look deals, meaning if somebody, whoever is first goes first, says no, you have to go to them second.
Okay.
But really the main thing is the first look deal. Most people, that's what it is. It's first look. After that, you go anywhere you want.
Okay.
So whenever I had a project I wanted to move forward, I went to HBO first.
Okay. Paul, would you tell us exactly what does a manager do and how is it different than an agent?
Well, the quick answer first is that an agent's primary responsibility is to basically procure employment, i.e. get auditions and so on, and then if you book a role is to negotiate the contract. That's really what an agent is all about. A manager, the quick answer is, does everything else, i.e. work with you on pictures, on your demo reel, who are we missing that you don't know that we really need to know, and how do we get to them, and kind of just overseeing everything and guiding and advising on what you need to do to further your career. However, pretty much most managers also work with their clients to try and get them in for auditions.
Really? So when you say getting them in for auditions, are you really allowed to contact a casting director and say, hey, you got to see my client, she's perfect for this role?
You're putting me right on the spot here.
Well, I know you're not supposed to, but
I think pretty much every manager does that. I mean, out here in California, certainly, the letter of the law is that only a licensed talent agent can procure employment. So the question becomes, what does procure employment mean? Does that mean if I call a casting director and ask them to meet you or see you for an audition, am I procuring employment? The labor commissioner so far generally says yes, that's what it means. However, there is a Safe Harbor Act within that law which says that if the agent agrees to let you do that and you work with them, then it's kind of okay because you're helping them as opposed to you just doing it on your own.
Right, so basically you're just helping the agent.
That's correct. So there's a little fuzziness around that one particular area, but you know, I think pretty much all managers do what they can to get their clients in the door because that's what everybody wants. But on top of that, you know, I consider that certainly a major part of what I do, but I also only consider that a small part of what I do because I
Okay.
find that actors need some help and guidance in knowing how to get to where they want to get to. You know, what do I want to do? I want to be you know, an actor on action adventure. Well, what does that mean? How do we make that happen? Who do you need to meet? What do we need for your demo reel to show that you can do that? How do your pictures relate so that if somebody sees a picture, they say, oh, okay, he can do this, or he's right for this. So it becomes much more than just about trying to open the door for an audition.
So it almost sounds like you're really looking at the bigger picture for the actor's career, not just an individual job, and trying to figure out, where this person should be heading or what the person wants to be doing, and then laying all the groundwork to actually make that happen. And that might even include finding the right acting coach for the person. If they wanted, like you were saying, they want to be doing action films, well, maybe they need to take some martial arts classes. Maybe that would be a recommendation.
Absolutely, and it's all of those things. I mean, there's nothing that you said that a manager doesn't do. I am constantly trying to figure out, okay, what is the best thing that I can do for my client to move their career along? It's not just about, okay, oh boy, we have a job, you got to book this. To me, as I tell every one of my clients when they go in for an audition, of course I want them to book the job, but more importantly to me is that they book the room. Because if they book the room, it means if that job, particular job, turns out not to be really right for them, for whatever the reason may be, and there are so many reasons we never know what they are, at least we know that casting director liked them, so they'll call them back for something else. And I've had many times where clients have gone in to the same casting director for the same show half a dozen times or more until they finally booked something. Because they liked them, so they kept bringing them back until it was really the right role for them. And you never know why someone else is picked and not you. Because it, as I think you know, and we've all learned, it's not always the best actor that gets that particular role. Because if they're not right for the whole look of what they're trying to do, it sometimes doesn't work. And so they have to go with somebody else.
Yeah, as a perfect example, so over a 2-year period, I auditioned for the Netflix show House of Cards 15 times
Yeah,
before
exactly.
booked the role. So yeah, and exactly with what you're saying, when they do call you back, that means they really liked what you did.
Right.
So
And,
then
and, and
that's
to
all
me,
you can ask for.
and to me as a manager, that's much more important to me. I think an agent, it's much more about did you book the job? Because that's really what they're about. And I don't mean that as a negative at all. There's no negative about that, but that's their job. My job is, again, as you mentioned, about thinking long term about their whole career and what is it down the road, not just today.
Right. So at what point would you say that an actor should be considering looking for a manager?
Well, I think there's two schools of thought. One is when um, they're further along in their career and you can help them open more doors. And then the other thought, of course, is right away. Being a manager, my my answer is right away. Um, Look, I have worked with many actors who come to me and have little to nothing on their resume, and they come to me because no agent will actually take them on because they don't see, they're not looking for the long-term picture, they're looking for today. And if you look at their resume and what they've done, it doesn't say anything about today. So for me, if I see somebody and I think they're really talented, and I think they're the right look, and they have the right commitment to making this happen, it's worth it to me because I'm willing to make that long-term investment to create a career, as opposed to just can they go in there today and book this series regular role. It doesn't
Got it.
happen that way. You got to create that career, and I think, especially nowadays, it's really difficult to get an agent when you're not at that certain level. I think agents are much more, what would be the right word, discerning
Selective?
in who they're going to take on as a client, as opposed to developing a client. And I think managers are much more open and willing to develop a client than agents are.
So if somebody is at a point and they think, okay, I want to start searching for a manager, what kind of things should they look for in the manager?
I think one is how long have they been doing it? And I'm not saying they have to have been doing it for 25 years, but I think somebody opened their doors yesterday, unless they were an agent who's for a long time and know that business, so they switch to becoming a manager. That's one thing. But I think because it's so easy to be a manager, you really don't have to do anything except say, "Hey, I'm a manager," and now you are one.
Uh-huh.
So I think you just have to be careful about that. But to me, I think the most important thing, and it's also what I look for in a client, is there a connection? Are they really excited about working with me? Do they get who I am? And do they have the right knowledge and connections to the people that I need to know and meet? I think those are the most important things. But for me, the most important thing, excuse me, is the connection. Do I connect with them? Do I get along with them? Is it the right fit? Because the truth is, I'm not right for everyone, and everyone's not right for me. So you've got to make sure that that's really, I think, the most important thing.
It was funny. I had a mom call me the other day, and she said, her daughter is getting started, in the acting business, and she was saying, well, I'm thinking maybe I could just be her manager for right now. And, I mentioned to her, I said, well, okay, so what contacts do you have in the industry? Well, I don't have any contacts, right? So I was thinking, you know what? I don't think that would be a smart business decision for you. I know you were talking about trying to save some money by not working with a manager, but it's a really bad decision. So for anybody out there who's thinking about, taking on their child's career, um, I think about it twice unless you have had a lot of experience in the industry. People know who you are. You can get your, child seen by the right people, and you also know, what the industry is all about. So,
Yeah, and I agree with that. And quite honestly, it's one of the reasons why I don't represent kids, because my past experience with it is the parents who don't really know the business that well will suddenly think they know more than I do in terms of managing their child. And as I now, whenever I go to any kind of showcase or if I'm on a panel and I'm talking to parents, I try to make them understand, let the manager do their job, and you should do your job, which is a parent. Because, well, it's true. Because
yeah.
when a child goes in for an audition and they don't get the job, you need to be there as their parent. I can be there as their manager, or whoever their manager is. You need to be there as their parent, because those are different needs. And I think they're both really necessary. And I think parents should let somebody who knows what they're doing in the business do their job for them.
Hey, I'm curious. When one of your actors goes in to read, and I don't know if this is just specifically for you or if you can answer this more in a general way. Would it be unusual in any way for a manager to call the casting director, especially if it's somebody they, just started working with, and just say, "Hey, how did things go?"
I think managers will do that sometimes. I especially do it if it's a casting director that I know really well, and then I can really get them to give me a real answer. Because most of the time the answer is, "Oh, they did a good job. We just went with somebody else," and it doesn't tell you enough.
Right.
But if it's somebody who I know really well and I can have a real conversation, then maybe I can get something from them that would really be helpful. I think most of the time, though, the best information comes when you're at a higher level and you're in for those big recurring or guest or series regular roles. I think you get different kind of information then. But generally speaking, when somebody goes in now for a role and it's just either guest star, co-star, the general response is they did a good job. We just went with someone else. So you don't really learn enough. They don't have time either. So I mean, casting directors are really inundated with phone calls and messages and trying to get everybody in, especially nowadays. When they put out a breakdown, they're getting sometimes, depending on the role, 1,500 to 2,000 submissions, and they're trying to figure out what 10 people are we going to bring in or less. So they're working on that, and then they have to set up the sessions. So then they're doing the sessions, and they're trying to figure out who's on tape going, which tapes are going to the producers, and then so there's just so much time involved that I think it's very difficult for them to spend that time. So it becomes much easier to just say,
Yeah.
well, they did a good job.
And the other thing too is, unless something really horrific happened, they might not even remember the audition.
Correct. I think, yeah, unless they made a note on it, which, again, as you're right, unless it's something horrific or something spectacular, but it just wasn't right for that role.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they're not going to really know. You know?
Say, would you explain how managers get paid?
Sure. Manager gets paid when my clients work. By the way, it's something that when I was the president of the TMA, I've always had a hard time with, and I always said, if anyone wants you to pay them up front, they're not a manager. They may be something else, but they're not a manager.
Right.
A manager gets paid by commission when a client works. The pay is based on their gross pay, not the net. It's the gross pay. So if somebody, for example, if a job pays $1,000 for the day, my pay is on the $1,000, not on what you're getting after they take taxes out and your, Social Security and the dues and all of that kind of stuff from SAG. It's not based on that. It's based on that gross pay. And a manager, quite honestly, can get any percentage because there's no law in terms of regulating managers, but the basic is 10 to 15, anywhere 10 or 15. That's the general percentage for managers.
Oh, I didn't even realize that some took 10%. I always assumed it was 15, unless you're managing somebody very famous who's making millions of dollars, and then you can work out all kinds of deals.
Well, look, and my clients, I have an agreement with all my clients. It's verbal, and when it's happened, I've always lived up to it. I am a 15% manager across the board until you become a series regular. When you become a series regular, it'll become 10%, primarily because I want you to hire an entertainment attorney, and they take 5% of your pay. So I'll give up 5% so they can have that, because I believe that you'll be much better protected with an entertainment attorney, because that's all they do, and in the long run they'll actually make you more money, because this is what they do all the time, is negotiate at that level. And I think agents, because they have so much else to do, I don't think they're as connected with the business affairs people as the entertainment attorneys are. And so
and they're also not attorneys.
They do a better job for you. I'm sorry.
And they're also not attorneys.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, some of them are, but most of them are not. Right.
Yeah. So how would somebody even go about trying to find a great manager? Are they mostly based in LA and New York and maybe Chicago, or will you find managers in smaller markets as well?
Well, I'm going to say there are managers in smaller markets, because the smaller markets will have people there who want to help in those markets if there's enough business there. For example, there's a lot being done now in New Mexico and in Atlanta, in New Orleans. So I think there are going to be, if there aren't already, managers who are there, who are handling the local talent, just as there are agents who are handling local talent. But I think, basically you're looking at New York and LA as the major hubs for that. And if you want to find a good manager, look, the truth is, this day and age, because of the internet, you can pretty much research anyone. And certainly you can go on the Talent Managers website, talentmanagers.org, and anyone who's on that who's a member of the Talent Managers Association, I certainly would recommend, but certainly the majority of managers are not members. So you have to go and do a little research. A lot of places do manager showcases, especially out here in Los Angeles. I'm not sure about New York, quite honestly, although I would imagine they probably do. But there are these companies that do casting director workshops, and they also do management nights where they bring in 4 or 5 managers, and you go in and show them what you can do in the hopes of finding a manager. They also do it for agents. So,
Right. And
but but
so,
the thing, but one thing I just want to say this: you as an actor needs to be really proactive in their career, and they need to go out and do the research and know who they're meeting with and find out something about them, because you can. Look, I have a website. If anyone wants to meet with me, they can go on there and find out who my clients are, what I'm about, at least a little bit about who I am. I'm sure you can go on IMDb Pro and you find out something else or whatever. There are ways to find out, and an actor needs to be proactive in doing their own research and finding that out. I think that's really important.
even just going to LinkedIn, a lot of times you might find
Yeah.
information about the person. So let's say you found, a couple people you're interested in trying to connect with them and talk with them. How would you recommend someone prepare before their, well, let's say meeting with you? What would you expect people to do ahead of time besides doing the research of knowing the types of people you manage, which, by the way, might not necessarily be an indicator as to whether they might be interested or you might be interested in them. Like for instance, let's just say you only strictly had actors and nobody else. And let's say this person is a writer or a musician. Some people might think, well, Paul only represents actors. I probably shouldn't even bother with him. But the fact is, maybe that's exactly what you're looking for, at this point. So don't let that be the determining factor as to whether you want to approach somebody, as to whether they already have people in your category. But what would you recommend someone do before they meet with you?
Well, again, I think they need to find out who I am, and I think they need to prepare questions.
Like,
They
what
need
kind of
to,
questions would you like to have
they need to
somebody
know
ask you?
they need to know what they want from a manager. They need to know, do I do this, or how do I work with a client? What do I expect of them as a client? Because if you don't ask me those questions, you're not going to know. And if I need to get it, if I'm only asking you questions, you never get to know who I am. The actor won't know who I am. And the truth is, the actor's hiring the manager isn't hiring the actor. And so actors need to, I think, understand that I work for them, and they should be interviewing me. Even though the way it's set up, it's kind of set up as if I'm interviewing them, because that's just the nature of the beast. But the truth is, they should realize that they have to be interviewing me. So they should know the questions they want. They should know what they want out of the manager. Figure it out. What do you want? What do you want me to do for you? What do you want to know about me? And you should ask those questions.
Okay, so let's say I came in, I'm sitting down with you. Hey, Paul, look, I really want to, I want to be doing more feature films. How can you help me make that happen?
Okay, but instead of asking such a generic question, it's, hey, do you know people in the indie film world? Have you worked within that, and what has your experience been in that world? How do you see me fitting into that world? And what am I going to have to do to get into that world? And how can you help me do that? How do you work with me to make that happen? I think it's more about not just, okay, you're in the world, what do you know? It's you got to make it more about you, because you're the person ultimately that the manager is going to be working with, trying to help. So you should be making it about, what do you want? How do you fit into this? How can you help me make this happen?
What's so interesting about the way you even just phrased all those questions. It forces the actor to take a very different kind of mindset. A lot of times it's easy for actors to feel intimidated. They feel like they are almost like they're begging, please, I want you to manage me, as opposed to going in with some strength and saying to you, basically, look, I've got a lot to offer. This is what I want to do. How can you go about making that happen for me? And is that something that you are capable of doing? Which really, it makes it much more of a partnership, in a sense, as opposed to, daddy and child. And I assume that as the manager, you much prefer hearing somebody talking, in that tone.
Well, absolutely, and that's why I say, you need to know what you want from the manager, and to also, again, remember that you're hiring the manager. The manager is not hiring you. It's up to you to decide whether you want to work with me. It's not like I'm going to go, I'm working with you whether you like it or not. It's just not going to happen. You have to say, hey, I want to hire you as a manager. Yes, I have the right to say, you know what, I don't want to work with you. But ultimately, you have to be able to say, I want to work with you. Because I can say I want to work with you, and if, as an actor, you don't want to work with me, it's not going to happen. So you need to make sure that I really am the kind of manager that you want, and you feel that I can help you get to where you want to get to. And that's why you need to ask the questions. Now, I have a particular process, and this is me. I know this isn't how most managers work, but it's how I work. Generally speaking, on the first time I meet a potential client, I tell them, ask me anything you want. I'll answer it. You ask me anything you want. Well, I'll answer 99% of your questions. Maybe not 100. But you need to ask me whatever you want to ask me. This is your turn to get to know me. And if after you get to know me in this first meeting, if you want to meet again, then it's my turn to ask you. But there's no sense in my asking you all those questions if you don't want to work with me.
Right.
And so you need to find out whether you want to work with me or not. Once you think you might, I'm not saying you have to sit there and go, okay, you're the guy. It has to be, you know what? He might be the guy. This might be the right manager for me. And if you can feel it, then I need to find out if you're the right client for me. And during that time, by the way, you'll also learn more about me, about how I work at the same time. But generally, the actor needs to take control of that interview. You're interviewing me for a job.
Yeah,
even though you came to me.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it almost feels like you're, going out on a date, and you want to make sure if you're going to go out again, you want to make sure you like this person.
Yeah.
And because it really is, unlike other things in the business, this is a real relationship. I mean, you are taking a much bigger responsibility over someone's life and career by being a manager. So, I love that approach. So I'm curious, like for a typical kind of manager, I'm not talking about like a huge management company, but an individual manager, about how many clients will they actually manage?
Well, again, I don't want to talk for other people because everybody can handle whatever they feel they can handle appropriately. I mean, for me, I'm pretty much between 15 to 20, 20 being absolute tops, and I don't even like to really be at 20. I prefer being closer to 15. That seems to be about, for me, the best place to be. So I like to kind of hang around at that number. It fluctuates because that's the world we live in. It just fluctuates. If somebody comes to me and I have 16 clients and I just really want to work with this person and they really want to work with me, I'm not going to say no because I have 16 clients. I will take them on and have 17. But once I get to 20, I don't even want to meet with anyone because I know I will not be doing the right job for the first 20 if I take on another one. I just can't handle that many clients. But there are different kinds of managers. Some managers feel comfortable doing that. There are, of course, big management companies which handle much more than that. And then there are some people who feel, you know what, I just wanted to have like 4 or 5 clients that I know these are my clients, and I'm focusing in on that. So it really varies from manager to manager,
Got it. And do you try to find different types of talent, in different categories, or would it be okay to actually have a couple of people who, might be submitted for the exact same role?
I certainly have look, certainly at this point, when I reach a certain number, if I already have guy, mid-20s, good-looking, I don't want to take on another guy that's mid-20s, good-looking, because I don't want to be submitting more than one person for a role. But a guy who's mid-20s, who's, what would be the right word, edgier and plays the bad guy, that's okay. So in other words, what I'm saying is the mid-20s isn't the thing, it's how different are they? Do they go after, will they be going after different kinds of roles? So yes, I try to make sure that I don't have clients that are the same in that sense. I don't want to be submitting more than one person per role. However, sometimes a breakdown comes out mid-20s waiter. They don't tell you anything more than that. So you may be submitting more than one person for that role, but they're going to be very different. So
Right.
yes, I do try to figure out what am I missing. That's what I'm now going to try and fit into my roster.
And you were saying that now, do you have a contract that you have people sign, or how do you work things?
I do have a contract. My contract is for 1 year, not for 3, which seems to be pretty much the standard. I do 1 year. I have a mutual, and as I always say to everybody, please hear the word mutual, option to renew for 2 more. Because if after a year we really want to work together, then I want those 2 years, because that means we're really making progress. I want to make sure we're together for that. And the flip side to that is, I don't know why I tell clients that I ask them to sign a contract because I think it's important that they make the real commitment to doing this, to working with me as I am making to them. However, the truth is, if 6 months down the road a client comes to me and says, you know what, this isn't working for me, I want to go, I'm not going to tell them they have to stay. I will let them out of their contract immediately, unless they're doing it because tomorrow they're signing a big deal. Well, if they're going to do that, you got to pay me for that. But yeah, you can leave me. But listen, my whole thing is, if somebody doesn't want to work with me, why do I want to work with them? And vice versa. I may be with a client and 6 months down the road realize this is not working out. This is not what I thought this was going to be. Or, you know what, I haven't been able to make anything happen for you for whatever reason. I have not been able to actually tap into your energy. I haven't been able to figure out how best to get you in that room. Maybe there's somebody else who can do a better job for you because it's not working. So I'm not going to keep you for another 6 months when you could be with somebody else who might be able to help you during those 6 months.
Sure. Now, I realize that this is a very broad kind of question, but sometimes I've heard people say, yeah, I've been working with this manager for a couple months, nothing's happening. And, my thought is always, well, it takes time, for this stuff to actually start to kick in, and it takes time for you to start making contacts for them and get the auditions happening with the right agent. I mean, is there any kind of even just a ballpark idea that you could share with people as to, realistically, how long could it really take before, even just getting auditions to start happening?
Yeah, I come from at it a little different way. It's not just for a manager. It's not just about the auditions. If that's all it's about, then go get an agent, because that's what an agent does. If it's only about the auditions, then get an agent. Why are you with a manager? Because that's, again, we talked at the very beginning about what a manager does. To me, it's all of those other things. Now, if you're telling me that let's say 3 months have gone by and we've never talked, or you've tried to contact me and I've never responded, then there's something wrong. Okay? Because as a manager, I need to be doing all those other things. I need to be talking to you. Are you okay? What class? How's your class? What's going on? What do we, maybe your pictures aren't working. Let's take a look at them. Let's take a look at your demo reel. Do you have anything else that we can add? What do we need to do to jumpstart the auditions? So, but if it's only about auditions, it's because, you know what, I've talked to you every day. I've told you the teachers. We've talked about your class. We've talked about your reel. In fact, we've redone your reel. We've done a new photo shoot. We've maybe even gotten an interview with an agent. And you're sitting there, and after 3 months, you say to me, well, we haven't gotten me any auditions. What are you doing? Well, then, you don't know what a manager does. We've done all those other things. It's if we haven't done that other stuff, then, yeah, I think you have a right. I think, when I hear somebody say, I have a manager, and I haven't talked to them in 3 months, it's like, why? Have you not called them? Have you not tried to talk to them? Have you emailed them? Have you communicated with them? And if they tell me yes and they've never responded, I'm wondering why that person's a manager. What are they doing? I mean, I speak to my clients and talk to my clients all the time. I probably see every one of my clients within a 2-month period. I have seen, I don't mean just talk, face-to-face, sat down with every one of my clients all the time. And some of them much more than that. Just depends on what they need and where we are and what's going on. But yeah, I mean, if it's just about auditions, then you don't understand what I'm doing.
Sure.
And you need to understand I'm a manager, not an agent.
Now, you're based in LA. Do you have any clients in New York that you would be able to submit or, try to get them seen by New York casting directors, or do all of your talent live in LA?
I have, I do have a client in New York, but that's because we met out here, and he was my client here, and then he moved to New York, and so we've continued working together. It's a lot harder for me because I don't know the people in New York at all. I mean, a casting director here and there maybe, but I'm I'm not comfortable really with saying, oh yeah, I would take on an actor in New York. It's not my place. My home is here. This is where I know people. This is where I've done this for 22 years, where I've made all my contacts and relationships. So I'm much more comfortable here than I would be in New York.
Sure. Now, I guess this is every manager's nightmare, and I've spoken with managers who, and quite a few of them have told me the same story, where you start working with somebody, the person was just getting started in the industry. You spent a year or two, and then things start happening, and then they land a reoccurring role, or they're a series regular, and then they decide, you know what? I want to go to a bigger name management company, and I know that's every manager's nightmare. And I'm sure it happens to it happens to most people. And I guess like what I've always said, when I've spoken with people, also people who've left, just because you go to a bigger place, that certainly doesn't mean that it's going to be a better place for you. I mean, the person who you started with is the one who really developed you. And even if you have no sense of loyalty, even just from a business point of view, it makes sense. Stay with the person, who you're with, assuming that everything is going well. So I just thought maybe if you could just, briefly speak to how not jumping ship and going to, a sexier name or a bigger name, manager is really not necessarily in the person's best interest.
Well, you mentioned some of the reasons, even in terms of asking the question, and certainly it's happened to me. So I'm familiar with that syndrome. But here's my thing about it. Yes, and what you have said, I'm going to know them better than anyone else they go to. Casting directors are going to know when I call them about them. They already know the relationship. In other words, I've created a relationship with the casting director with that client, so that they know them come through me. And when you go somewhere else, they have to kind of recreate that. And also, if you're going to a bigger company, which seems to be the thing, oh, I need to go to a bigger company, they have more clout or whatever. If they have 50 clients, you become their 50th client. You're number 50 on their list. You're number 1 on my list. I'm going to go after everything possible for you. If you go there, they're going to try and take care of the people that have been with them and have made them the money already. You're not going to be even number 1 on their list. And I understand the concept. Well, they're bigger, they have more influence, they have this, they have that. That doesn't mean it's going to be right for you, because that influence was gained by the clients they already have. And so that's what they're going to use to keep that influence. You're going to happen, I believe, you will happen only when they're taken care of. And so you're not their number 1. If you started with me with very little on your resume and you've now become a series regular, why would you think that we can't keep doing that, or that you can't get another series regular, or that I can't help you take that next step when we've already taken all of these steps to create your career, and it's 5 years down the road, or whatever amount of years it is, and you think somebody else can now do it better for you, and they don't even know you. What makes you think that? I don't know. I don't understand the actor's thought and concept there, but I know that it's prevalent, and I know that it happens all the time, and I know that it comes out of this sense of bigger, better, more influential. Yeah, that they may be, but we already got you here. why would you go?
Right.
Why would you now stop that momentum? Because you are stopping the momentum. You have to start all over. You think you're going to pick up right where you are when you go somewhere else. You're not, because they don't know you as well as I do.
Well, it's like you
So
have a
you're
happy
starting off.
marriage. You have a happy marriage. Why would you want to get divorced just to, you know, start dating somebody else if things are going really well? It doesn't make any
The
sense.
grass is always greener. I mean, people think that it's not always greener. Sometimes you go over the hill and they have a drought. It's brown. The grass is brown. It's not
That's
green.
a good way of putting it. Hey, I'm wondering if an actor's on a set and there are some issues going on, typically would they call their agent to say, "Hey, we got a problem here," or are you the one who gets the phone call?
Well, I tell my clients to call me. Not because I don't think the agent would take care of it. I think just because I'm time wise, I think I just am I am able to deal with it quicker, better, and more immediately than perhaps an agent can. Not to say that they won't or can't. I just know that because I have less clients. For me, I think my clients calling me, I'm there, I'm on the spot right away. I mean, my clients know that. It's happened to me, and I've had to deal with stuff. And I think that my clients know that if they call me with that kind of a situation, I'm going to take care of it right away. Not, oh, I've got to deal with this first. No,
Right.
I'm
And,
taking
and
care of
also
it.
kind of like with what you were saying before, you know your client better than anybody, so
Right,
you'll know, how to take care of things,
right.
that's appropriate for that
Yeah.
client. And
I've probably had conversations with my client that an agent will never have. I know what their needs, wants, desires, willingness or not willingness to do, probably much more than the agent. So when a problem comes up, I'm probably more knowledgeable and able to deal with it than they
and when somebody books a job, who does the casting director contact? Will they contact the agent or do they contact you?
It varies. There are often times if it's a situation where the client is in there because I went after the role and I've dealt with the casting director all the time, they'll call me when they're ready to book, but I always then put them on to the agent. I let the agent close the deal. That's their job.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to take an agent's job away. I'm trying to help them, trying to help my client. Really, is what I'm doing. So when we reach that's what they do. They're better at it than I am. I'm going to have to assume, and so I would much rather have the agent take care of that. So when a casting director calls me and says, "Hey, we want to book your client for whatever the role is on whatever show," I immediately say, "Well, you know what? This is their agent, and please call them." And they go, "Okay." And I immediately let the agent know that they're going to be called.
And Paul, I know you're on a really tight schedule. This will be the last question. I'm just kind of curious. Do you generally find that you have close relationships with the agents of your clients, or is that something you really don't get that involved with?
It varies from agent to agent. I mean, there some agents that I work with, I have very good relationships with, and I'm very close to. We talk a lot. When something comes up, where the communication is really good communication. And then there are others who aren't that concerned about it. And so, as far as they're concerned, we're just going to do our job, you do your job, and it's up to the client to keep everybody informed. For example, there are times when my clients get an audition and the agent doesn't let me know. So I have to make sure the client lets me know. You got to let me know when you're going in for something because you don't know who I know. Whereas for me, if an audition comes through my office, I'm always letting the agent know. That's just what I do. But that's
Yeah,
okay. I get it. Again, they're they have a lot more clients to take care of in general than I do. So I understand that. It doesn't bother me, but I do want to be able to have some type of relationship with them and communication with
sure. Well, Paul, I just want to, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time out of your incredibly busy day to share this information with me and other people. And just for everybody watching, I just want to let you know, Paul really is one of like the really nice guys in the
them. Yeah.
industry. And if you are ever planning on moving to LA and you are looking for a manager, he's a guy you definitely want to look up and see if he has any available spots for a meeting. But and if you want to learn more about Paul's company, just go to, and actually I got it right here. We'll make sure I have it right. It's PB and that's paulbennettmanagement.com. And anyhow, I just want to thank you so much again. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Aaron. Thanks for thinking of me. I'm always happy to do this. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Everybody, that was just incredible. Paul, like I said, he's a really, really nice guy. And I also just wanted to let you know I've got another monthly workshop happening next month, and if you're interested in my private mentoring sessions, you can always reach me at howtoactandmodel.com/coaching, and you can also find me at facebook.com/howtomodel. I'm Aaron Marcus, and I can't wait to talk with you again soon. See ya.